No matter what your taste, whether traditional, conventional, or modern and sleek, design impacts our everyday life. And toward that end, our new segment on 1290 WLBY and the Lucy Ann Lance Show is Damian on Design, as we introduce you to Damian Farrell of Damian Farrell Design Group here in Ann Arbor. Really is true, Damian, isn't it? Design, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere, you know. It's fascinated me all my life. When I was on the board of the Arts Center, I remember Marsha Chamberlain saying that, you know, even a cereal box is designed. Someone sat down and designed it, and you just look around this room, every single thing around us has been designed. So it's not just about the architecture or interior design or fabrics or clothing, it's every single little thing.
And isn't it true that, you know, we do this by sight? We see something, we know whether we like it or not, primarily based on its design, and that can even go by people.
Absolutely. It does go.
And how the maker designed us.
Yeah, and our comments on some things like, what were they thinking?
Right.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's and I'm hoping that one of the things that will come out of the show is that when people look at things, they start to understand maybe why they like it or don't like it. That we can talk about design in a way and illustrate things, and so people can start to develop their own vocabulary about design. I mean, we all walk into clothing stores and so on and go, oh, that's just me, or that's just my wife, or that's, you know, exactly the right thing for someone. And so what is it that gets us that 1 second?
What is it?
You know?
Is it structure? Is it form? Is it color? What plays into all of this?
I think it's. I'm a huge believer when it comes to. Well, let's start with the building area first. I think proportion, and elegance, and volume play into that. You've mentioned all the way from traditional to highly contemporary,
Right.
and those things are common right across the board in any kind of design or space. I think when it gets to things like clothing and cars and so on, those are so visceral, and they're so personal to us all. You know, I'm a car nut, so I look at these things, and I'm hoping that it's one of the things that we'll talk about as we go on with our show. But I think, you know, clothing, we get used to what looks good in form and shape on our body, the way it either hangs or sits or ties or whatever, and we get used to the same with the people around us that we love and we buy things for and that we enjoy.
How do they fit into our lives too?
Yeah, and how do they fit into it?
Truly, design is the factor that binds all of us together. So we're hoping that we can learn more about design by talking with you each week on Damian by Design, on how that plays into our lives, and maybe help us kind of formulate what we like and don't like a little bit better.
I hope so. I hope that we can not educate, but I hope we can bring a vocabulary to people's lives, so that they do understand. Why do I love that? Why do I hate that? Why does that look strange to me? Why does the proportion of that particular car look like a hearse? And why does a Ferrari look as gorgeous as a Ferrari looks? You know?
How does that happen anyway, right? Damian Farrell with us on 1290 WLBY and the Lucy Ann Lance Show. Let's get to know Damian a little bit better. Obviously, with the sound of your voice and the design of it, people are wondering, where do you hail from?
I was born in South Africa, and I came about architecture and I think it's an amusing little story. My parents were farmers in South Africa. My father was a sugarcane farmer. One of his best friends was an architect, and he practiced from home. And he happened to have two very attractive young daughters who were the same age as I was. And so I think my parents thought that I was going there, that I was perhaps starting out on my romance life a little early, but the truth was, what I loved to do, his name was Pat Short, I would go and sit in his studio. And his drawings absolutely fascinated me. And of course, these are the days of hand-drawn, beautifully rendered, you know, everything pencil, crayons, and so on. And I was just fascinated by these drawings. And I would sit there, and although we never talked much, in the sense when I look back on really where all this came from, I think that's where it was. And so I went through school, and I did I remember so clearly as well doing one of those career test things. And the career guidance person called my parents and said, I need to meet with you. I'm very concerned about Damian. And he wants to be an architect. And his exact words, and I remember this, was, architects are bums and they mostly end up working in supermarkets. Which I suppose in this economy, he's not far off. I went and did a year of engineering, and it wasn't me. So I quietly enrolled myself in architecture school down in Durban, in South Africa, and that took me on this journey that I've been on. And so during that time, I took a year off, and I had worked on a project in South Africa with Carl Johnson, who founded JJR, which is the planning firm
Right.
that are based here in Ann Arbor. And that is a story unto itself. But I was fortunate to do that over a 4-year period, and we became very close friends. Carl became a mentor. In fact, he would stay with me and with my family when he was over there. And we worked on this one project, which was just fabulous. And I got to go back in July last year and visit it after all these years. So that takes us back to the late 70s and early 80s when we first started to work on that project.
What was that project?
It's called African Enterprise, and it's an international missionary organization that is based in my old hometown called Pietermaritzburg, just outside the town. And I won the design it was a national design competition in South Africa, and I won the competition as a student. And so we were given the money and to bring Carl over to work with us and to be the lead on the project. And so I worked alongside him for those years. I came here in '83 for a year to work with him.
A lot of your work, from what I can tell, is you're a master at taking some of the older structures like that and making them sleek and putting in contemporary touches to help with the type of living we have today. I think that's
well, thank you. That's very complimentary. I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah,
that
that's
has to be hard to do in a way, because it's easy, I think, to take something that is not there and put it into terms of design today, but to take an older structure and do that has got to be tremendously hard.
I think I've always loved the challenge of, I've always said that a project with no constraints is the hardest project to design. And I always think that one of my best designs, in my own opinion, was a couple in South Africa who bought a tennis court off an estate. And literally I had to design on that 120 by 60 foot tennis court. And talk about constraints.
Oh my goodness.
And I think that those things they push you, they test you. And a lot of our work is with large groups of people. Probably our most current and most topical project is the Near North project, the affordable housing project that's going to be happening on North Main Street. So that's a MISHTA. It's a true affordable housing project. We're working in partnership with Avalon Housing. Right. Extraordinary organization.
And we've talked to them about that on air here,
So that's one of our current projects. We do a fair amount of senior care work, which is also one of my passions, which I hope we'll talk about as well, which is healthy environments.
And
so
adapting that design for a senior who needs a certain kind of structure in order to...
So it's not just the tactile and the physical comfort of someone, but also the environment in which they are, the air they breathe, the fabrics around them, the paints around them, that sort of stuff. How do we encourage and how do we really foster good health?
This is Damian on Design on the Lucy Ann Land Show on 1290 WLBY with Damian Farrell. Let's get a sense for the weeks coming up on some of the topics that we're going to tackle each week here on the show.
I see this as a really wonderful broad opportunity. I'd like to talk about some of the detail stuff in everyday homes, if you will. Talk about some of my favorite details within homes, things that I love to deal with when we're working in homes, and if we find, as hopefully people respond, that there are practical questions about things, we can always address those. But I'd like to take it from the home all the way to looking at the trends across the country in home design, in community living, in healthy environments, to even abroad. I think it'd be fascinating to look at what's happening around the world right now. As well, and just
is it markedly different from the U.S. of A.
Absolutely.
to other countries?
Absolutely.
How so? How would you describe that?
I think number one, in construction techniques and construction materials, those allow designers different freedoms and different ways to flex their design muscles. So we are we're very embedded in the wood frame or metal stud frame and steel construction in this country.
Right.
Places like Britain, for instance, everything is brick. All right, solid brick walls, interior, outside. Other countries, other places as well use a lot of concrete, so poured concrete where they start to form it and shape it into different, and use it in very, very creative ways, like how people caring about the whole arena of green right now, as you know, is huge.
That has really changed the face of design.
It has changed the face of design. I think it has changed the face of the way many people who are conscious of it and who want to do something good approach their daily lives.
Right.
From the incredible rise in recycling we've seen, for instance, to how products are incorporating recycled materials or recyclable materials, how people are looking at creating things that don't kind of, as they say in the business, don't downgrade, all right? In other words, that a tire doesn't just become a pair of flip-flops, you know, that as an illustration. So how can we make something and then use it again?
And also, in our homes, we desperately, I think, need a way to easily recycle. This idea
Absolutely.
of carrying bottles and cans and recyclables out to the garage or wherever you may have it is ludicrous in this day and age. There's got to be a way easily in the home to do it, to make it very functional for the homeowners and the people that reside there to
And
recycle.
you've touched on one. That's one of the trends in Europe.
Is it?
Yes, that I hope we will talk about, which is the convenience of creating that. So yeah, we are in many ways a few steps behind some other parts of the world like that, where homes integrate that technology. All right, you know, all the way from handling your composting to generating warmth and heat and taking water, grey water, and actually running it through bog gardens, all those kind of things that we...
Do you think that's because, Damian, that we have more land here, that in Europe, they had to really think about, you know, how best
Absolutely.
to put these things together to make it easy for themselves?
Absolutely, undeniable. You know, they tend to live in smaller homes,
Right.
they live more efficiently, they do more with less, as one of the new expressions is. But the movement in this country now is becoming just a massive groundswell. I think we saw some of the start of it when Sarah Susanka wrote The Not So Big House.
Oh, right.
I mean, everyone had that. I had people coming into my office, you know, with that book tucked under their arm, saying, "This is what I want to do." You know, and that's when we first started to see that, and then the incredible amount of research and work and this excitement that's going on in industry now, as people look to develop new technologies to enable all of that. I mean, it's just a race on for it.
How exciting. And each week we'll have part of our segment be a Trending Now segment so that
Correct.
our listeners can be up on all of these design trends that are out there. You can visit Damian Farrell online at dfdgonline.com. That's dfdgonline.com. And each Saturday with us here on the Lucy Ann Lance Show with Designed by Damian. Looking forward to it. And each week we'll have a new topic for people to explore.
We will. And I want to thank the two people sitting here in the studio with us, Gillian Williams from my office, and also to Dean over there in the corner, Dean Erskine, for putting this all together for us. It's so exciting.